you are a parent and you have thought about what it means to feed your child a nutritious plant-based diet, then our next guest, Margot Freitag, is the person you need to hear. I want to invite you to come and listen to Margot, a certified plant-based nutrition and certified personal trainer who worked many years in high schools as a teacher and also as a massage therapist. And today, her entrepreneurial pursuits include the development of plant-based nutrition courses and coaching. Her new cookbook for children, Plant-Powered Punks, and its associated membership serves as an opportunity for teachers, parents, and kids to have fun with cooking and create delicious, healthy, whole plant foods together while developing healthy habits that last a lifetime. As a father of a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old, I can tell you that one of the most important ways that I have found to help my kids stay and maintain and enjoy their vegan and plant-based diets is to get them involved. My youngest, Juliana, man, if I can get her with a little kid's knife in her hand, chopping olives for Mexican night, she is happy as can be. So I'm delighted to have Margot here to join us on stage. She'll be sharing her insights and everything she's learned about raising plant-based kids. Thank you, Margot.
Thank you very much.
Put your hands together, everyone. Let's not lose our manners.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you, everybody, and thanks to everybody at Planted for having me today. I'm really excited and grateful to be here. Okay, lots of parents here. Any teachers? Grandparents? I think you'll find this information useful and helpful. So my story starts back in 1995. And I was in school in Vancouver, British Columbia. And I was sitting, it was the first semester, it was a new semester, first class of a new semester. And the class was nutrition. I was in my 20s at the time, and I had been struggling lifelong with severe asthma and allergies. And at times it was life-threatening. I had lots of trips to the emergency room and spent a lot of time in a croup tent. When I was a little kid, there was no such thing as Ventolin inhalers. My parents would rush me to the emergency, and I would get a shot of norepinephrine in my arm, and usually some steroids, and then they'd put me in a croup tent. And so here it was, doctors said that I might grow out of it, which I never did, but here I was in my 20s, still struggling. Now Ventolins had been invented, so I had my Ventolin in hand every time I went for a run or did anything, really. And on this day, in the very first class of Nutrition 101, way out in Vancouver in 1995, this little lady walked into the class, and she had a big stack of papers and books, and she came to the front of the classroom and she said, "Hello, everyone. The nutrition teacher that was going to teach this class today just called the school and told the school that she wasn't going to be able to teach this semester. So they asked me at the last minute if I would teach it, and I said yes." She said, "My name is Brenda Davis." Now, for those of you who don't know who Brenda is now a world-renowned speaker and a best-selling author.
She's been on our stage.
She has, I'm sure she has. She's phenomenal. And so I was expecting, I didn't know Brenda, because at that time she was just this budding vegan dietitian. And I was expecting that she was going to hand out copies of the Canada Food Guide. I mean, what else would you expect in Canada when you take a nutrition class? But that didn't happen. Brenda just started talking about plant-based nutrition. Now, plant-based nutrition wasn't a thing in 1995. She talked about some things that you eat hurt you and harm you, and other things that you eat heal you and promote your health. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, this is the answer. And of course, I was addicted to cheese, and I didn't make the changes that I needed to make right away. But many years later, when my son was diagnosed with asthma, I knew what we needed to do. And we made all of the changes that we needed to make. And within a week, the Ventolin inhalers were at the back of the cupboard, and we were asthma-free. Back to that class in 1995. One day, Brenda talked to us about dairy products. The whole lesson was about the dangers of dairy products. As a cheese addict, I wasn't very excited to hear this. And the girl beside me, who was the daughter of a dairy farmer, was also not impressed. But what Brenda had to say was, you couldn't just ignore it. And there was this one part of the lesson where she talked to us about the connection between type 1 diabetes and cow milk. And she explained this whole thing about molecular mimicry, leaky gut, and casein. Casein being the main protein in cow milk. And she explained that the casein can get into the body, the human body, if there's a leaky gut. And it turns out that the casein, this main protein in cow milk, is similar in molecular structure to the pancreatic islet cell. And so she explained how there's this autoimmune reaction against this casein, which gets into the body, and in turn, the body creates an immune response and then sees the pancreatic islet cell as similar to the casein. And this is the cause of type 1 diabetes. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like this is going to be on the papers this week. This is going to be on the news. This is going to be everywhere. Parents will be cautioned, and we will have solved this horrible, devastating disease that children suffer with for a lifetime. And as you can imagine, that didn't happen. Crickets, nothing. This was my first experience with the powers that be. Corporate profit over human health. And of course, this lesson was retaught to me over the years, and I'm sure you're all aware of situations where you know or you've discovered that maybe these larger powers don't have your health in mind. So here we are, how many years later since that class? I don't know, it's been about 28 years. I don't want to age myself, but it has been a long time. And how are things going for our children? Type 1 diabetes hasn't been solved, even though we've known for a long time what's going on. Well, here are some unfortunate stats. The current generation of children is expected to live shorter lives than their parents. Rates of childhood obesity have skyrocketed. On average, children at the age of 5, 20% of them are obese and 50% are overweight. By age 18, this number has increased. 30% of 18-year-olds are obese. And what happens to these kids when they grow up? By the time they're adults, 76% of them are obese. Okay, that's the obesity. We know there's a link between obesity and disease. What else is there? The list goes on, but I thought that I would just share a few prominent points. In the United States, antidepressant use in children has skyrocketed. 500,000 new prescriptions for antidepressants are written for children every year in the United States. Mental health disorders have also skyrocketed. Now we know that there are multiple factors, but you will see shortly that we are adding insult to injury with bad food. Mental health disorders like ADHD, anxiety, depression, behavioral problems, they're all on the rise. Type 1 diabetes is on the rise, and so is type 2 diabetes. And diabetes has increased in children by 4.8% between the years 2002 and 2015. Type 2 diabetes is causing kidney disease, eye disease, and neurological or nerve damage in kids. And here's something that I found devastating and shocking. Diabetes is the leading cause of amputation and blindness in kids today. Shifting to cancer, cancer is skyrocketing in children. And the leading cause of cancer, the leading cancer in children today is leukemia. Now, I don't know if any of you are elementary school teachers or if you have kids and you've been in an elementary school setting, but the very first thing that happens in school at 9 o'clock in the morning from Monday to Friday is the teacher collects milk money so that our children are indoctrinated from such an early age to believe that cow milk is not only important for health, that it's important for all aspects of health, bone health especially. So what are the culprits? We're going to talk a little bit about the culprits. And you know them already, but we're going to go into a little bit of detail. I hope that's okay. Processed food, junk food, fast food. And processed food, of course, is loaded with additives and preservatives, genetically modified organisms, all of these things. Animal protein, animal-based foods, dairy products especially, eggs especially, meat especially. And these days, insects. Have you noticed we're eating insects now? And then there's this other thing that I think that needs to be mentioned, and that is that we live in a culture that is low carb. There's a high protein, low carb culture that is pervasive in our society, and I do believe that well-meaning parents, often with the guidance of well-meaning physicians who don't get medical or nutrition training, are imposing these low-carb approaches to help children lose weight. And of course, it doesn't work because we are obligate carbohydrate consumers. We produce salivary amylase, which is an enzyme in our saliva that starts to break down carbohydrates just as soon as we eat them. We need carbohydrates for our first source of fuel. And when we feed our kids protein, their energy levels drop, they feel sick, and they, of course, can't stick to it because it's not natural. So then we get this cycle. We are starting our children at an early age to yo-yo diet. We're on again or we're off again. And of course, it doesn't solve the problem. What happens when kids eat junk food? All of us, but it's particularly difficult to watch a child go through this. Hunger signals are sent out soon after children eat junk food because their nutrient quotas aren't met. So the brain sends out a signal to say, hey, we need more food because we need nutrition. And more often than not, kids will reach for another nutrient deficient snack. Why? It's easy, it's convenient, that's why we call them convenience foods. Furthermore, we're addicted to these things, aren't we? And it's been talked about so much on this stage this weekend. Food addiction, processed food, these things are designed by food scientists to be chemically addictive. Sugar, perfect amounts of sugar, fat, and salt keep us coming back for more and incapable of having just one. And that's not the worst of it. There's also the additives and the preservatives and the genetically modified organisms. Do you love my slide? These arrows took me a long time. I could not figure out a better way to make a graph but I'm telling you, it does paint a picture, doesn't it? These are just a few additives and preservatives that I wanted to share There are a lot more. I don't even have GMOs on this chart, or whatever you want to call it. But take a look at the physical health implications of eating foods that have these additives. Cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, asthma and allergies, cardiovascular disease, hormonal disruption, immune system damage, abdominal issues, organ damage. And can we just pause for a moment here and look at the mental health effects? These additives are causing our kids to suffer from anxiety attacks, depression, hyperactivity, ADD, ADHD, oppositional defiance disorder, OCD, behavioral changes, mood changes, aggression. Don't our kids suffer enough with social media and the internet? We are adding insult to injury. Furthermore, the genetically modified organisms, Bt toxin is an insecticide that destroys insects by perforating holes in their intestines. And then we give this to our kids. Glyphosate, which is Roundup Ready, is a carcinogen. Teachers and parents will know this scenario. It's after lunch. The students have just had all the garbage available to them. Pizza, French fries, whatever else is being sold in the cafeteria. And a myriad of things can happen. So kids will be either sleeping on the desk because they're exhausted, they're bouncing off the walls, they're curled in a corner with an abdominal problem, they're in distress because of whatever they ate. And then, of course, there's somebody else having an anxiety attack in the bathroom. Not conducive to learning at all. And then there's dairy products. Dairy is full of everything that's not what we want to give our kids, and yet we're taught that it's everything we want to give our kids. It's the leading cause of saturated fat and cholesterol in the human diet, in the North American diet. Cheese specifically, which is the root cause of cardiovascular disease. And it starts early. Of course, this is dose related. We start training our children early to eat these foods. And the very first thing that they notice are fatty streaks on the inside of arteries. And these fatty streaks are the laying down of cholesterol and plaques early on. These fatty streaks are the beginning stages of cardiovascular disease. Casein and estrogen together are related to hormone-related cancers like breast cancer, testicular cancer, prostate cancer, also dose-related. Casein and calcium together, of course, milk does have a lot of calcium, causes constipation in children. Studies have shown that when kids give up constipation, or when kids give up cow milk, their constipation completely disappears. Iron deficiency is prominent in kids who consume dairy because the casein and the calcium inhibit iron absorption. Somatic cells are white blood cells, predominantly neutrophils. Neutrophils are the immune system, the white blood cells that produce pus. And we have an allowable limit in Canada. It's 500,000 somatic cells per milliliter. And in the States, that number is even higher at 750,000 cells per milliliter. And these cells, yes, they produce pus because there's bacteria in the milk because all of the cows have mastitis. And then well-meaning mothers give their baby a bottle of cow milk, and their little eustachian tubes, they haven't developed, their heads are still little, so their eustachian tubes are kind of horizontal. Ours are, as you get older, you grow and they become more vertical. And so what happens is those little horizontal eustachian tubes, is where the milk pools at the back of the throat, and of course, ear infections are the result of that. Bovine leukemia virus is present in every glass of milk you drink and in every piece of cheese you eat. Bovine leukemia virus is the virus that causes leukemia in cows. Milk is pooled. We can't get rid of it. Other countries have taken 30 years to get rid of bovine leukemia virus, but not here in Canada or the United States. It's considered to be too costly. But bovine leukemia virus causes leukemia in cows, and interestingly, it's the leading cause of, or it's the leading cancer in dairy farmers, and the leading cancer, leukemia is the leading cancer in children. This is something we really need to be aware of. Mycobacterium paratuberculosis is another bacteria that causes something called Johne's disease in cows. It's the equivalent of Crohn's and colitis in humans. And it turns out that it withstands, it endures pasteurization, and it's believed that it's linked to Crohn's and colitis in humans. Then we've got the antibiotics and PCBs and dioxins. They've been discussed today already. The antibiotic of choice in the dairy industry is penicillin. So if you have a child who has a penicillin allergy, I'm allergic to penicillin. It's a common allergy. This can make matters worse. And of course, this diet culture is always talking about animal protein for kids. But animal protein causes cancer. Once daily calories exceed 11% of animal protein, it can stimulate cancer proliferation. The Atkins study group determined that bone loss is a result of high protein intake. And of course, the saturated fat and cholesterol is at the root of heart disease. And of course, you can't have animal protein without saturated fat and cholesterol. So what do kids really need? Well, kids need nutrient-dense, fiber-rich, whole plant foods. The more, the better. They need micronutrients. They need phytonutrients. They need vitamin and mineral-packed whole plants. And they also need healthy habits. Now, I might know this, you might know this, and you might be very certain that this is what your children need to thrive. But your children may not be so excited about the idea of eating more plants, especially if they're used to going through a McDonald's drive-thru on the way home from soccer, or getting junk food on a regular basis, or having their favorite cookies in the cabinet. So what I wanted to say is, it's what you do most of the time that counts. We're after progress, not perfection. And I think that's where we need to all start. I have some ideas here for you. This slide, actually, I have in a postcard form back at the Planted booth, just behind you here. And you can go and get this postcard to take with you and put on your fridge. Remind yourselves to tap into these tips. So how are we going to do this? Well, the very first thing that I believe is the most effective strategy to get our kids to eat more healthy whole plant foods is to get them involved. And that's why I created the Plant Powered Buns Cookbook. Children need to touch and feel and smell and taste and put together all of these ingredients so that they know exactly what's in their food. Children also need agency. They want to have a say. They don't want food to be put in front of them, and they don't want to be told they have to have it. If they have a choice, if they play a part in what the meal is going to be, they are going to be more invested in eating it. So here's my suggestion. Get the kids involved. Let them pick a recipe. Let them go with you to the grocery store. They want to go with you. They want to help. Send them to get the ingredients. Keep an eye on them. Stay in the produce department. But let them pick the lettuce. Let them pick the kale. Let them pick the fruit. Whatever it is. Bring the ingredients home and let the kids play. And then together with you, the parent or the grandparent or the aunt, uncle, make the recipe. Don't worry about the mess. Just have fun. It should be a wonderful experience. And I guarantee you that your child will be more inclined to try the food. The next thing here on that note is to keep it positive. When your kids refuse food or they don't want to eat the thing, the last thing we want to do is force them to sit at the table until they finish. It tortures the parent, it tortures the kid, and the food doesn't really get eaten. The child never learns to like the food, and it doesn't really do anything but damage your relationship. So stay positive. Don't get frustrated. Don't worry about messes when they start cooking with you. Make it joyful. Sit down for meals and ask them about their day. No electronics, no phones at the table. Have a good chat, have a good laugh, and make meal times an opportunity to make memories. Lean in. You don't have to make all the changes at once. You don't have to make all the changes, period. Just a few changes can make a huge difference. Lean in, choose one recipe this week, maybe two next week. Try having fruits and vegetables for a snack instead of something that's prepackaged. Just lean in toward more plant foods, and as you lean in, you will naturally nudge out the less desirable foods. Let them graze. You don't have to force kids to wait until mealtime. Fruits and vegetables should always be available. And take advantage of those times of the day where your kids are hungry, naturally hungry. The thing that comes to mind is after school. The kids are always hungry after school. If you can, we did this in my house, cut up a fresh plate of vegetables and present those to your tired, hungry child every single day after school. And it will make a huge difference. They're hungry, they're unwinding, they might be watching a show, they might be doing homework, and they'll be munching on vegetables. It's a win-win. You can't go wrong. And before you know it, they'll be asking. In fact, my son is 22, and he recently said to me, "Mom, you used to cut up a plate of vegetables for me every day after school." Yes, yes, dear, I did. Why don't you do that anymore? Well, because you're 22 and you know how to cut up your own vegetables. But it does make a difference, and if they grow up this way, it sticks. Think nutrient dense. Ask yourself, instead of the old adage, a lack of protein, at least they had protein. I took my kid to McDonald's, but at least they had some protein. No. Start to ask yourself, not, is this protein rich? Start to ask yourself, is this nutrient dense? Does this food have an array of nutrition? Does it have a lot of nutrition? Does it have natural color? Does it have fiber? Nutrient dense food. And then last but not least is plan ahead. If you can plan ahead for those times where it's easy to make a convenient choice, like fast food or junk food, you can solve a lot of problems ahead of time. And I really encourage you to do some batch cooking on Sunday. Find a recipe that you love, double the recipe, and then you have dinner for soccer night or dance night, and you have lunches for the next day, maybe even a few days during the week. Plan ahead. Here are just a couple of things that we did in my family. Keep it simple. We had some family favorites. We had 4 or 5 recipes that we made over and over again that the kids loved. We got them involved in the grocery shopping, and we got them involved in the cooking. Smoothies for breakfast, super easy and always delicious, always a hit. Sauces, dips, and spreads for everything. Sauces, dips, and spreads. Keep that in mind, make them plant-based. They go a long way, and they help. Be flexible. No extreme approaches. Extreme approaches just don't work. You can't, we're just in this world of fast food and convenient food. You can't escape it. If there is going to be a hockey party for your kids, where there's going to be food that you really don't want your child to have, you can have a chat with them. We did. My son would order cheeseless pizza, or in some cases there is vegan cheese options. Or there were times where he just had the pizza. And the best thing to do in those situations is just let it go. You let it happen and you let it go. It's what you do most of the time that counts. Progress, not perfection. Same thing with birthday parties, cake, all of these things. It's what you do most of the time that counts. So you're here and you're listening, and that just says that to me that you're already winning. You're already doing a great job. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Congratulations. You're doing great. Progress, not perfection. Lean in. It's what you do most of the time that counts. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Margo.